Good morning, everybody. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their busy day to learn a little bit about AI. I'm Greg Nanigian, and I want to introduce Jordan in just a second. We're a full-service sales and sales leadership training organization. I did want to share with anybody that's located in Massachusetts. All of our training is 100% reimbursable under the Massachusetts Workforce Training Fund program. So it's just a wonderful program. And Jordan, Jordan, you were kind enough to send me an introduction, which I'll read to everybody in just a second about yourself. But it's interesting, as I was thinking about the program today, I realized that there's 220 Sandler affiliates around the world. And I came to the realization as I was thinking about the affiliates is that you're one of the youngest, and I think I'm probably the oldest, maybe not in years of my age, but in terms of the number of years that I've been with Sandler. So I've had my affiliate with Sandler since 1987. I started it when I was 11 years old. I really wasn't 11, but I did start it in 1987. So we're looking forward to working with you guys today. And I'm going to read the introduction that you prepared, Jordan. So Jordan's been in the Sandler network for 9 years, ever since his father became a partner in a Sandler franchise in Charlotte. And back when Jordan was in middle and high school, his father was a Sandler client and would listen to the Sandler tapes. This is back cassette tapes. I remember those days. On their drives every weekend for Jordan's travel hockey trips. And it's interesting because my brother worked with me about 20 years ago here in the Sandler franchise. And he and his son, who is now, let's see, Jake, almost more than that, I guess. Jake is now 29. When Jake was like 6 years old, I guess this is before he actually started working for me, he had the tapes. And he and his son, when Kim, his wife, would go grocery shopping on Saturday afternoons, Jake and my brother Dan would listen to the Sandler tapes. And soon enough, little Jake at 6 years old was using the Sandler material on my brother. When they'd go to a grocery store, he'd say, "Dad, can I have this candy bar or this candy bar?" He'd be using AB clothes and things like that. So it's pretty funny. Jordan also interned with his father's Sandler franchise in the summers between semesters in Clemson, and even skipped a week of classes in college to become one of the youngest certified trainers at the age of 21. After graduating college and spending 4 years as a sales engineer, that's my background too, for a manufacturing company, he rejoined Sandler full-time in 2022, almost 15 years after first listening to Sandler tapes in the back of his dad's car. Since rejoining Sandler, he has focused on technology, introducing AI and automation, as he realized the potential impact it could have on their business as well as their clients' businesses. With the release of ChatGPT in late 2022, and Jordan's going to talk about ChatGPT today. It's a pretty cool app that'll help you to understand better your clients' and prospects' communication styles. And as you line up with those, they've actually done studies on it. You'll experience a 25% increase in your sales effectiveness. That's huge. And we train on that program. That's a 3-hour program. And in 3 hours, we're increasing salespeople's sales effectiveness by 25%. And this ChatGPT is just a great tool. Jordan decided it was time to start sharing what he had learned about AI and how he was using it in his selling process. He started by creating a newsletter on LinkedIn, The AI Sales Guy, then moved on to international Sandler webinars and podcasts, began creating content for Sandler, including a ChatGPT that won the Gold Award for the best sales white paper of the year. And he is now a partner in SalesLift, which helps Jordan's clients implement sales technology that aligns with the Sandler selling methodology. So let's give Jordan a round of applause. Looking forward to this, Jordan.
Thanks, Greg.
You're on.
Thanks for the intro. I'm going to try and effectively share my screen and hope that I got zoomed down after 3 years. Can you all see that? Good. Well, thanks for the introduction, Scott. Thanks for the invite to speak with everyone today. Hopefully this isn't just going to be death by slides for the next 2 hours. I have no intention of doing that. If you have questions, come off mute. I have the chat open so I can hopefully see it. I have my, my screens over here, then on my presentation here. So it looks like I'm looking at you while I'm talking. But really, I want to have just a dialogue, a conversation to help you understand where AI is today. There's a lot that's happened since ChatGPT released, 14 months ago now. I think we've all realized that the way we thought about sales and the way are going to think about sales could be two very different things, right? So I'm going to talk about a few of those things today, just to open our ideas and open our minds to what is possible in our life, at our company, so on and so forth. So like Greg had mentioned, I am a Sandler trainer down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Greg, I work with a lot of the Sandler trainers around the world, so I help kind of bring in some of this HubSpot and AI piece, as that's one of my focuses. So if there's anything, I was talking to Greg about this actually a week ago, and he was saying, I was doing a Sandler training in 1994 at XYZ place. And I said, Greg, you've literally been training longer than I've been alive. So I was born in 1995. So if you want Sandler stuff, he's a great resource. And then I'm a partner with HubSpot. Is anyone familiar with HubSpot? Who they are, what they do? CRM company, marketing company. And then I gave myself a nickname, which I know you're not allowed to do, but I did it and it stuck. So I gave myself the nickname of the AI sales guy. Really, that came from creating a newsletter on LinkedIn, which the intention was just to share value with my network, with our clients, with the business owners that we know, because I was trying to figure out, when I rejoined my family's franchise 2 years ago, it was a small franchise, especially after COVID. They just thinned down to my mother and my father. And I decided, well, I'm going to join. It's going to be the three of us. How do I make the three of us look like five of us? How do I make the three of us look like 10 of us, but without hiring 7 people? And the way I realized that we could do that was with AI, automation, and technology. And I've done some of that, and I've helped some of our clients do some of that as well, which I'll talk through today. But my goal, and really the thing that I love to do, is help combine proven sales methodology, which at Sandler, we'd like to think we're pretty good at it, and some of the cutting edge sales technology, which you've all heard about AI at this point if you've opened a newspaper or gone on LinkedIn, right? Automation's been around for a while, but give it 3 months and who knows what's going to be out there and available, right? Things are changing very quickly. So just combining those two for people, really to help them sell smarter and increase the efficiency and effectiveness of their sales reps while actually making it easier to sell, not harder. So that's the goal here today. So I'll start with what is AI? Whenever I do these talks, it can be a little bit tough because I'll walk into a room. Some people use AI every day. Some people are still trying to figure out what it stands for, and that's okay. I understand that everyone's at a different place on this spectrum, and I want to bring everyone up to speed, get us all on the same page. Then I'll talk through AI-powered selling, and I've actually added a few slides in last night at 11 p.m. because I thought it was going to be valuable for this group, and I thought that some of the things that I could share would be helpful as you start to think about how could this apply to my company, my team, my life. And then we'll wrap up with ChatGPT best practices and prompts for salespeople. We'll give you some things that you can take away and use this afternoon if you really want to, as you start to explore some of this technology and these tools that are available. So if you can, I'd like you to open your chat, and this is where I'd like to start. If you can help me understand, when you think about AI, artificial intelligence, technology, and implementing into the sales process, do one of these 3 things sound like you? Or have you said one of these 3 things, or is it something else, or is it all 3? Because this is a lot of what I hear. A lot of my team will find these high-tech solutions too complex. We need tools that are just easy to understand. I'm not sure how to maintain a personal connection with customers while increasing automation and AI in our sales process. That's a big one, and I think that's important. A lot of people are worried that as tech increases, personal connections decrease, or it could be the pace. Every day I open, the journal, it's talking about AI, this new AI tool, right? So what, if you can, unless you want me to talk for the whole 2 hours straight, I can do that, but I'd like some engagement. What are you thinking in your world? Is it complexity? The tools are maybe a bit too complex. Is it, maybe the personal connection is going to wither away? What is your concern so I can understand where people are at? Or maybe you're excited. There are no concerns. Maybe the first group I met that is like that.
Jordan, I'll weigh in on with just one that's maybe similar to the personal connections, but I think like we're certainly embracing AI and helping our clients try to embrace AI. But one thing that often comes up is this fear that AI will become like a crutch and people won't provide original thought and original solutions, which I think
Hmm.
gets to personal connections, but also maintaining kind of innovation within your culture and developing thinkers versus, robots. So
Yeah, that's a really good one. That is a very good one. And it's a realistic concern too. Thanks for sharing. Hit in São Paulo. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it feels like this is sort of a new arms race, right? And a couple of years ago, things were very different in AI. Now things have advanced significantly. So for me, it's sort of the pace and how do we stay current? Like things are changing so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what, my main job is a Sandler trainer. This AI thing was a side job until what happened with AI, and I realized that it's not possible to have AI as a side job because, 24 hour you could spend 24 hours a day just trying to keep up with AI and still be behind. We always say that, there's the path to mastery. Typically, when you start to get closer to mastering something, you realize it's actually further away than you originally thought, right? And AI is especially one of those cases. So, interested in, how do we maintain authentically personal relationships while using AI tools? My favorite AI tool actually builds my best relationships, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. How do I get the team to utilize AI without spending too much time playing with it? Great question. Great question. Because a lot of this right now is it's experimental, right? We're not sure, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Because no one's done it before. So some of this is an investment of time and resources, but the main resource I think right now is time to figure out, is this something that's actually going to, drive the needle forward, make an impact? Don't really know how to embrace and use the tools. Yep. It's like starting with a blank canvas. Good. Thanks, Ryan. Okay. So I have enough to work with, and I think everything that we've talked about, I'll touch on in some aspect. But if for some reason I don't, I'd like to ask that you bring it back up and we can chat about it because I'm going to have these three sections like I talked about, and we'll kind of debrief after each one. So starting at the beginning, what is AI? It's not this. Well, it could be eventually one day, but I don't think this is what we're talking about today. And that's not what I'm here to talk about, not these cyborgs that take over the world. And this is a funnier slide depending on the room that I walk into. But I think you understand what I'm getting at here. I'm not talking about competing versus computers to see which one of us is stronger and smarter and better. But it's more so using technology as a teammate. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But when we look at the types of computers, there's two types. So today we have the computers that we're familiar with. These are modeled on calculating machines, right? So you put an input in, a set of calculations occurs, and an output comes out. Code, right? You put a certain piece of code in, and that code is read in a very specific way, and then it outputs onto a web page. If you put a period or a slash or whatever in the wrong space, it's not going to come out how you like, but that's your fault because you put the code in wrong. The computer's just supposed to read it. It has no understanding of, hey, he meant this or meant that. So they're hyper literal. They execute programming language, they perform calculations, and they execute tasks. I want you to click this button and I want this to pop up, right? Something like that. Artificial intelligence is different. It's modeled on the human brain. So when it's modeled on the human brain, it becomes a lot more conceptual, right? You'll hear this term called neural networks, and that comes from the way it was actually developed based on the neurons in our brain and the synapses communicating with one another. So AI is actually a program and technology that learns and it's trained. And after it's trained, it then has outputs and judgments that it makes based on the training. So it can make these judgments, it can be creative, and it can synthesize information and make predictions and understand what different things are happening and add context to it that computers have never been able to do. So at its base, AI is simply a computer system or a machine that can perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. That's the full definition of AI. It's not a human that can do something that a human should be able to do. Right. So these are things like speech recognition, visual perception. So let's take this example. If I take a picture and I show a picture to a computer, that computer is going to know, the file type, maybe the file size, but it doesn't know what's happening in the picture. It doesn't know why it's funny, why it's sad. AI does. If I show ChatGPT or AI a picture and is programmed to detect and understand pictures, it can tell me why it's funny. It can tell me what's going on in the picture, who is in the picture, what do they look like. It can describe it. So these are things that computers could never do before, only humans could do, but now it has that capability. So have you ever used Siri? We're familiar with what Siri is, right? Anyone know when Siri was created? 2012. So for 11 years, it's 2023, it's 2024, 12 years, we have been walking around with AI in our pocket, right? Whether we knew it or not, it may not have been the strongest version of AI because AI is only as strong as its brain. And its brain is typically the internet, or that's the brain of ChatGPT, 4 billion parameters from the internet. Siri had a much smaller brain because the internet wasn't as in depth or built out, and it was a much smaller brain. And now my phone is trying to listen to what I'm saying. So you have Siri. What about Amazon Alexa or Google Home, right? Or even predictive text. So you know when you're going to send a text message and the next couple of words pop up and you can just hit the space bar and it fills it in. That's all AI. And that's all actually what ChatGPT is doing, is it's taking millions of pieces of data, if not billions, and it's saying, based on everything in my history, what is the most likely word, or token is what they call it, but word that will come after this set of words. And it's just predicting the next word. So when I've asked people, what is AI or what is artificial intelligence? A lot of people say it's Chat GPT. Like, okay. Saying AI is Chat GPT is like saying California is the United States, right? It's not. It's just one of the states. It's a very specific state that maybe everyone is familiar with, and it may be the biggest state or one of, but there's a lot of different states and there's a lot of different cultures and a lot of different reasons why you might want to live in or visit a different state, right? And in a similar way, ChatGPT is just one form of AI. It's generative AI, right? And I see Umair's comment. We're going to get right into this. ChatGPT is a speck in a sea of possible tools that are AI powered, right? So generative AI is simply a type of artificial intelligence that can generate something, generate text, generate images, generate video, anything like that. So ChatGPT is a form of generative AI. And this is as technical as I'm going to get. So stick with me for a second. But we have this bubble of artificial intelligence, right? Inside of artificial intelligence, we have another category or sub-designation called machine learning. Inside of machine learning, there's a designation called deep learning. And then inside of deep learning, there's a bunch of different subcategories. And one of them is generative AI. So as you can kind of see, ChatGPT is simply a speck on that generative AI bubble. And if you zoom all the way out, it's a piece of sand on a beach, right? When you're looking at AI as a whole. So when I think about artificial intelligence, especially for sales or specifically for sales, I think about it as different types of technology, software, tools that utilize artificial intelligence to help sellers improve and streamline the sales process, right? So I consider a digital teammate, the unpaid intern, right? Whatever you want to think of it as. And we did a webinar at Sandler in April of last year now, so almost a year ago. But I still think that this question is very relevant today. And the topic was on, will AI replace salespeople? And we said, no, it's not going to. But the salespeople who understand how to use AI will replace the ones who don't. Let's think about a marketing example for a second. Right? We all know that ChatGPT is great at creating content. This marketer using ChatGPT can create 5 blog posts a day that are high quality, Well done. This one without ChatGPT can create 2. Which one are you hiring? The one that can do 2.5 times the work? Right. So it's a question of how efficient they're able to use these tools and increase their output or capacity. So I think of AI and ChatGPT as a personal assistant or a member of the team, really. It can help draft emails, brainstorm ideas, suggest discovery questions, and more. But there are other AI tools and technology that's being built specifically around industries and use cases that can make them a lot more helpful, a lot easier to use, and provide better outcomes. So while we'll talk a little bit about ChatGPT today, and I think ChatGPT is a great way to dip your toe in the water of AI because it's free and you can just kind of start to experience the power of it. Where there's a lot of other tools that are worth your investment paying for, at least they've been worth mine, because they're focused on a specific use case that saves me a ton of time every day. So real quick showing of hands, is there anyone who, well, let me ask it this way. Who uses ChatGPT or has used ChatGPT once? Most of us here? Okay. So most of us have seen this, but I know that there's some of us who are still waiting to dive in, and that's okay. But this is ChatGPT, right? This is that blank canvas that we were talking about earlier. I think it was Ryan mentioned. So I'm going to give it a prompt. This is a prompt that I've used over and over. I explain what I sell right there, right? And then I explain what are the 4 outcomes that my product provides or my service provides. And then I ask what departments within a company should I target for my sales outreach? So let's play this. And this is a prompt that I use over and over and over because I like the outcomes of it. But when I hit send, ChatGPT is going to do its work and say, okay, based on what you can do, you should reach out to the sales department, marketing, probably business development, operations, IT, and it's going to tell me why. Right, so nothing groundbreaking there. But then I have another prompt fired up and I say, hey, for each of those departments, I want you to help me understand what each individual cares about, how they spend their time, what they struggle with, and then how my solution can help them, and put it in a table. Right, so now I have a table of all the departments that I can work with, what they care about, how they spend their time, how I can help. That's great, but that's still not what I want. I want a very specific cold outreach email. So I tell it what I want in the first sentence, second sentence, third sentence, fourth sentence, and it drafts 6 cold emails, 1 for each department, based on what they care about, how my solution can help, and the parameters I've given it. So this video is, I believe, 1 minute and 21 seconds. I have never in my life created a cold email in 1 minute and 21 seconds. Usually it takes 15 minutes of writing it, 5 minutes of contemplating whether it sounds stupid or not, and then deleting it and rewriting it. Or I can take a minute, get 6 drafts, and spend 5 minutes tweaking it, right? So a lot of people, they tell me you can't copy and paste, anything from ChatGPT and use it. It's just not that good. It might not be, but let's pretend, hi, feeling hindered by the lack of actionable data when planning your growth strategies. You're probably relying on basic market reports, but these can lack specific insights. Our tool automates data collection and delivers detailed AI-driven insights to inform your strategic decisions. Would you like to explore how we can support your business growth? That's better than 98% of the cold emails I get. I don't know about you, but I would say that if we know how to use these tools, they become a lot more effective and we can really get some outputs that are useful. So that's just to give you kind of an intro to AI, bring everyone up to speed, get us all in the same room here. And I want to stop for a second. Any questions on anything I just spoke about so far? Good. That was the easy part. So this is the hard part. Just kidding. So it's
Actually,
great
Jordan,
to figure out what
I
is
do have a question,
Yeah, please, Eli.
and it's on behalf of my 2 interns here that are graduating, and
Yeah.
anyone that has kids in college. So obviously, this is significantly beneficial to college kids and high school kids and anyone writing papers and things like that. And I am curious about, I guess, downsides of that, plagiarism. I don't know. There's so many things that go into that how they're
Mhm.
detected, because there's different ways of detecting if something's AI powered or written, I should say. it creates a lot of confusion out there, I think. And I was just curious what what your experience is with that.
It can. I think this is a very big discussion around Chat GPT or really any new and emerging technology. Every positive use case, there's an equally negative one, right? I think there is genuine concern that if we rely too much on some of these tools, our skill set and what we're replacing is going to diminish, right? So if we're using Chat GPT to write all of our papers, we're not going to be very good at writing papers. And the question is, do we want to be good at writing papers? I don't know. Like for me, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn. I actually write it by hand. I use some Chat GPT, but um, I'm not good at writing newsletters. I'm not. I'm a sales guy. I like to talk. I don't like to sit down and write. So for me, my ability to write a newsletter is not that critical. So I'm okay using AI to replace some of that or support some of that. And at the end of the day, I have to go back through and edit it or adjust it. So I have to do the hard part and the critical thinking and figuring out, is this really delivering the message that I want it to? Where it's just the way I think about it, AI a lot of the time is it's like starting with a draft, right? It's a lot harder to start with a blank page than it is to start with a draft of something and then tweak it and edit it. So for example, I have a custom GPT, which is simply a Chat GPT instance that's trained on my data, and it helps me create LinkedIn posts. I have it help me create LinkedIn posts all the time, but I almost never use the output that it gives me. I just take the idea, I reformat almost the entire thing around the idea it gave me because that output gave me another idea to create something. So I almost use it as a brainstorming tool more than anything. So I didn't really directly answer your question right there, I don't think, but I think that, it's like when the calculator came out, right? Everyone was worried about, oh, well, they need to know how to do math by hand. Do they? Are they going to have to do that when they're in their finance position and they're uploading this into spreadsheets and it's doing all the math for them? I don't know. But I think we are at an inflection point where these are good questions to be asking and trying to figure out because things are changing. And if I was in college, I can guarantee you I would capitalize on ChatGPT quite a bit. So,
And,
does that answer
one
your question?
comment, yeah, it's good,
Yeah.
perfect. I appreciate it. One comment, I learned this recently because I was setting up a new website or a new domain,
Yeah.
and the fact that AI literally created my website in about 30 seconds, and I was shocked and amazed. And that was on GoDaddy. I mean, just
Yeah.
very, very impressive.
Well, your web development skills aren't going to ever develop if you keep doing that, but you probably don't need them, right?
No, I'd
So
rather
yeah,
not.
I mean, I think that's what it comes down to is, do I need those skills or that ability to do that? Because I can tell you what, it would have probably taken a little bit longer than 30 seconds to create that website without AI, and you'd have probably had a couple more headaches. So good. Thank you for sharing. Any other questions while we're at a good point here? Cool. Feel free to interrupt me, keep talking in chat, whatever works. So I want to bring up kind of the reason that I think this is an important conversation. 88% of salespeople say that personal connections are the most important part of their job. Does anyone disagree with that? So we all agree, I'd say. That's probably a pretty important thing in sales, personal connections, maybe. You probably need to know the person that is buying your stuff, unless you're Amazon. Well, despite this, most studies show that somewhere between 28 and 35%, so about a third of the average sales rep's time is spent selling. Well, we just talked about how it's the most important thing they could be doing is building relationships. Why are they only spending a third of their time doing that? Are they lazy? Are they out golfing? Or what's going on? Probably neither of those are happening, hopefully, but we'll talk about why this could be happening. Today's seller has a different role than the seller of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 2 years ago, if you really think. A lot of things are being run through the sales team now. And salespeople have a lot more responsibility than just sales, than just selling. And because of this, in a recent Gartner study, only 25% of sellers agree that they can complete all of their tasks while also maintaining a high quality that their company expects. There's just simply too many things going on for them to juggle everything and also do their job well. And this is the main issue that I think AI can really, really dive into and solve. So if we break this down and really look at what they're spending their time on, This is from Salesforce's State of Sales report in 2023. And, okay, here's the third of the time they spend selling. When they say selling, they're talking about meeting in person with customers. They're talking about virtually connecting, or they're talking about prospecting to connect. Okay. In addition to that, they need to prioritize leads, research prospects, prepare for the meeting, generate quotes, manually enter all this information into their CRM, right? Their favorite thing to do. Admin tasks, internal meetings. I showed this to one group, and I had the manager come up to me, or a sales manager come up to me after, and he goes, "You forgot the 10% of just BSing around," right? So that's in there somewhere. It's just not built in. That might be the downtime. Salesforce is just being nice. So I show this to say that, there's a lot of things that are required to complete the sales function today, not just selling. There's a lot of things that need to happen. And a lot of us have even more complex sales cycles or sales systems than even this. And because of the amount of priorities that are happening, 98% of sellers wish they had superpowers to help them accomplish their day-to-day duties. Anyone feel like they wish they had a superpower too every once in a while when things just start piling up? So I believe that AI can act as a sales team superpower. I think it can act as a sales leader superpower. I think it can act as a superpower for a lot of individuals if they understand how and they let it. So what could this look like? Well, a lot of this data you'll see is from Gartner, and this is another one of those studies that they put together. And they said, what are the different stages of sales tech maturity from a company? And I have it start at stage 1. This is simple automation, but before this, there's stage 0, which is where a lot of companies are, and a lot of companies that we work with are actually there, and that's okay. A lot of them just grew too quickly to ever really add in the technology and tools to help streamline the process. My brother's company, who I'm working with right now, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, they're a $10 to $20 million paving company. He's one of their lead estimators or their lead estimator. They started 3 years ago. The owner is 32. They grew so quickly they didn't have time to put the systems and processes in place. And ideally, that's not how it's going to go, but you know how it can be, right? So there's stage 0, where you're using Excel, your email to kind of track things. There's not really any tech being used in the process. You're just sending invoices, collecting checks, and making things happen, right? It's stage 0. Stage 1 is simple automation, where salespeople start to use basic automation tools and AI that can assist with some activities, but the technology really is going to depend on the adoption of the seller. It's not like the company's in and adding this tech stack to the company. It's individually based on the seller. Then we move into assisted selling, where salespeople are using AI-assisted automation tools to really improve their productivity. And this is where the company actually starts to integrate technology into the process to provide some passive assistance. And I'll talk about a few tools that I use just like that. Then in stage 3, we have automated selling, where technology is acting as a full part of the sales team, and it's playing an active role in decision-making. And it's actually automating a lot of the tasks and sales activities and acting as a virtual assistant. And then stage 4, before I show it to you, I don't want to scare anyone or freak everyone out, because it's not for all companies. Not all companies, I think, should get there. I think it's more of a commoditized type of product goes into this category, like an Amazon, a Walmart, something like that, the box stores. But it's where technology can completely automate the sales process and make decisions. And there's actually salespeople more so acting as strategic overseers, not interacting with the customers. I don't like stage 4. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't ever want my company to get to stage 4. I want to always have face-to-face communication and interactions with our clients and customers, because the other data out there also says that clients report better experience and faster close rates, all of these different things when they're actually getting value from a rep. But not every instance needs that, right? Do you want to have to call someone when you're trying to place an order on Amazon for batteries? They're not providing any value, right? So just a small caveat there. So the question I have for you really all day, I want you to consider is what stage are you in? And what stage is next for you? And what would have to happen for you to get into that stage? And that's what I want you to think about as we keep going. So to help you consider how you can go from one stage to the next, I'm going to share the top 4 use cases that Gartner has outlined in one of their most recent studies as far as how to use AI in selling, how to use AI in the sales process. And before we dive into them, one thing that they mentioned that I think is very important is they said successful organizations are going to prioritize use cases that first show immediate impact, right? We want to make sure it's working. We don't want to invest in AI for 2 years and say, oh, well, we'll see if it works, right? And 2, we want to make sure that the salespeople welcome it. Does anyone know what the biggest hurdle to sales tech implementation is? Lack of adoption. If they don't use it, it doesn't work. I'm sure that's surprising, but if they don't use the CRM and update it, probably not going to get the data you want from it. So with that being said, what are the use cases? Well, they start with seller role simplification, which is exactly as it sounds. Actually making the rep of the sales, or the, excuse me, actually making the role of the sales rep easier, not harder. Streamlining. Generative value messaging. Now, when Gartner talked about this, they talked more about using ChatGPT to create value messaging and things like that, which we'll talk a little bit about today, but I think I actually have some better AI tools that can help with this that I'm going to talk about as well. We have prospecting. I know when I talk about this, I see salespeople, their eyes get watery and they're about to break down when they see that they're not going to have to prospect anymore. It's their favorite part of the job, I know, but AI can help with some prospecting. It's a joke. They all hate it. But prospecting is an area where we can start to use some AI. I'm a little bit weary on this one personally, and I'll tell you why when we get to it. And then probably the most important thing we do, arguably, as sellers or sales managers is close deals, right? If we don't close deals, we're probably not there for very long. So how do we use AI for solution design and deal closing? And those are the 4 categories I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to give you some real life examples and some use cases and really try and open your mind to what's possible. Now, the key is, I unfortunately don't have a silver bullet for you. Everyone wants it. If I could figure it out, I'd be a multimillionaire, I guarantee you, because everyone's like, how do I use AI in the sales process? How do I do it? And I give them a weak answer, and I say, it depends, because it does. It really depends on your sales process, who you're selling to, how you sell, how you go about it. Because the sales tools that I use in my process today and the AI tools I use, I wouldn't have been able to use at my last job. Right now, I use tools that I use on LinkedIn and virtual meetings. At my last job, I was calling on plant managers that didn't have a LinkedIn, and I talked to them in person because they'd never logged into Zoom a day in their life, right? So those tools wouldn't help me there. So I would need different tools for different use cases, and we'll talk about that as well. So diving into seller role simplification, this is really requiring a change and a shift in how we think about sales. And the old sales formula that a lot of us have subscribed to because it made sense is, if you get more reps and you give them more tools and they're doing more activities, they should drive more sales, right? Just more. If we throw more stuff at the wall, there's a chance that more of it sticks, right? And that's a good strategy until we realize that the law of diminishing returns plays a role here too. When you give a seller 10 tech tools instead of 5, it doesn't make them more efficient. It actually makes them less efficient, right? We're complicating the role of the salesperson so much sometimes that we're making it so much harder for them to actually do what we want them to. So what do we need to do? Well, Yamini Rangan, the CEO of HubSpot, shared this information, and I love the way that she put it. And she said, we need to create a new sales formula. And the way that looks is, it looks at efficient reps with connected tools who are actually focused on the right activities, and that actually drives more sales. Not more, but focusing on efficiency, intentionality, and basing our decisions and our activities based on what has worked in the past. And this is all to say, it's about selling smarter, not selling harder, right? You only have so many hours in the week. If you're trying to sell harder, you can only take up so much of your time to sell harder. But if you sell smarter, we can exponentially increase the results that we're seeing. We're talking about 2x, 3x, 5x, and so on. So, okay, what could this look like? Is anyone here familiar with Fathom? No? Cool. Okay. This is going to be fun. Fathom is an AI tool that comes to all of my meetings. It is my virtual AI assistant. So how does this look? Well, it connects to my calendar. And then I say, hey, anytime I have a Zoom link in my calendar, you can jump in the meeting. I just click a button and it turns on. Every virtual meeting I have, I invite it in. It sits as a little box and it says Jordan's AI note taker. And it records the entire call. It transcribes the entire call. But you're also going to see here, let me get my my laser pointer up here. It's going to give me a summary of the entire call, break it up by section. It's going to tell me when I shared my screen. It's going to tell me what questions I asked. But more importantly, if we dive into it, this summary is a good summary, good enough to where I can just send it and I don't need to write an email. I just send the summary. You might have also noticed to the right, there was a few different buttons. So we have a share button. I can copy the link, send it out immediately. I have a summary button where I can summarize it. I can click send the recording right here, and that sends to Taylor immediately. Or I have the sync button. Anyone recognize this logo right here for sync?
HubSpot.
HubSpot. So I have it automatically set to sync as long as a contact's been created in my HubSpot. But if I click that button, what's going to happen is an AI summary is going to attach directly onto the meeting for Taylor. That actually happens automatically for me. I don't even have to click that button, but it updates my CRM. And you can see all of these play buttons are actually links. So right inside my CRM, I can click on that button and go straight to the recording. So from there, I haven't taken notes on a virtual call in over a year. I did 120 virtual calls in Q4. I took 0 notes. I updated my CRM 0 times. Every time I had to figure out an action item, I went back to the recording and I saw exactly what I said. I mean, think about that. If your sellers had the ability to never take notes on a call again, what that would look like. And to be honest with you, I'm not good at taking notes. I'm much better listening to understand what's actually happening. And if I'm taking notes at the same time, I miss what's happening in the call. And today I'm walking out of live in-person calls saying, I wish I had that note taker in there. That thing would have caught what I just missed. So for me, this has been a game changer and it's totally changed how I sell. It's made my life, I can't even tell you how many times easier. So this tool alone has been life-changing, but there's another one I'm using that's very similar called Sybil. Sybil is the exact same thing as Fathom, but it costs money. Fathom is free, or there's a free version, which I've used the free version for over a year and been very happy with it. So there's Fathom, but then there's Sybil. Sybil uses a little bit more advanced AI. AI is not cheap all the time. So for them to get the better outputs, they had to invest in some AI. And great question, Lisa. I want to address that now. Lisa said, from a privacy perspective, are you letting the person know that Fathom is recording? Yes, I am. I always am. So a couple notes. You'll see here on this call, they show up as a separate box. So the person can typically see that there's a note taker in there. But in Sandler, we have what we call the upfront contract, right? And the upfront contract is basically setting the agenda and expectations for the call and the meeting. So that way people aren't surprised, they know what to expect. It just is a much more comfortable sales environment and it's much more professional. So in the upfront contract, I say, hey, by the way, when we hop on a virtual call, I use an AI note taker to help me just keep up with my meeting notes and the summary and my follow-up. Is it okay if I invite that to our meeting and that way I can send you the recording after in case you need it? Or would you like me to kick it out and just only let humans in the call? Right. And I ask them. Almost every time they've asked for the note taker. And actually, I was working on a deal with a medical device company, and this is the largest medical device company in the world. We're working on selling them one of these tools that's coming up later. And I had Sybil in every single call. And they loved the fact that I had Sybil, even though they were discussing very confidential sales practices and methodologies with me that we had to sign NDAs for. They had no problem with me having the AI note taker in there. And if anything, they said, hey, Jordan, can you actually invite your note taker? Because Susan can't make this meeting and she wants to see a summary, but I would just want her to be able to walk through the quick notes. Yeah, no problem. You know, those decision-making teams were 10, 15 people sometimes and growing, as you know today. So not everyone can make the call. So recording it and having a summary was very valuable. So good question, Lisa. You'll notice Sybil is a little bit different. And the key difference, or the one key difference, is it gives you a timeline. And on this timeline, you're going to see a bunch of little dots. You see these dots under Kim's name and my name? Those dots are every time we smile and every time that we nod. So I can be on a call with 5 decision makers, and I can be doing a HubSpot demo and showing them some different tools and ways that they could use it. If I'm in the middle of the demo, I might not catch all the little hints or signals that they might give me from a little head nod or a smile. But when I go back in my recording and I see, hey, at this point right here, everyone was smiling or everyone was nodding, I can click and see, what was I just talking about? 9 out of 10 times I just told a joke and it was a great joke, so they're all laughing, but I can go and see exactly what's happening in each call and get more context that I wouldn't have had if I would have just been trying to keep it up myself. Read AI, good question. I haven't used Read AI. The hard thing with this is there's about 500 of these freaking tools now. It's like, how do you use them all and tell which one's the best? So I've stuck with Fathom and Sybil for the most part. I've heard good things about Read AI. I just don't personally know the quality of the output. But when it comes to Fathom versus Sybil, I pay for Sybil and the output is much better. The outcome is very succinct, very accurate, and the next steps are incredible. They catch every next step. You don't have to say, hey, this is a next step, by the way. I just in the meeting say, hey, by the way, Kim, I'll block out the morning of September 27th. And then it captures that as a next step. It uploads that next step to my CRM as a task that I have to go check off. Right? So now I have it, again, updating my CRM without me doing anything. And I have this dream that in the next few years, sales reps won't have to touch a CRM. Maybe a little bit for some specific information that can't automatically be logged, but for the most part, it's going to be logging the information itself. What salesperson wouldn't want a CRM that updates itself, right?
Jordan, I've got a quick question. This is Jacob
Yeah.
from ATX.
Please.
If you have a call with somebody, let's say it's on Fathom or Sybil, and you connect it to HubSpot, is it uploading as a new contact as well if it's not familiar with the contact you're addressing? It's a
Good
new
question.
company. It adds a new company, new sales or new contact.
Good question. Fathom, no. Historically for Sybil, no. Until I was in there last night messing with the settings and they just had an update to where, yes, they do now. That's the crazy thing with all these AI tools is it's like one day it doesn't, the next day it does. So Sybil does that now. Yes. Good
you.
question, Dan, on the in-person. I'm trying to work through that. That's a fantastic use case if we could figure out how to solve it. I've been talking to the CRO at Sybil about this exact thing, and I've been telling him, listen, can we create just an area where you can upload meeting recordings? I think the difficult part is figuring out who said what and deciphering some of that. But there are some where you can upload meeting recordings. I think Otter is a tool that's very similar to this, and it allows you to do that. I would expect in 6 months, the answer to that question will be yes. Right now, the answer is kind of, but not really. At least from what I've seen. I don't know everything on AI, but that's what I'm aware of. So you can see kind of the power and potential of some of this stuff. I mean, how much time do you or your reps spend taking notes on the call that just happened? I mean, a day? How much time a day? How much time a week? How much time a year? I bet you that no less than 20% of my time has been saved with just using this one tool, right? And I work in the Sandler world and I work in the HubSpot world, selling sales training and selling sales tech. And I do both full time. And the only way I can do both full time is with tools like this that allow me to save 20% of my time after a call. Gartner also says that sellers who feel overwhelmed by technology are 43% less likely to hit their quota. That is a staggering number. And it's staggering because I don't even want to know how many sellers feel overwhelmed by tech right now. Probably a lot of them. I do. And I'm 28 and the AI sales guy in tech overwhelms me, right? So there's a lot going on right now, but the more we can use AI to make a sales rep's life easier and simplify what they do, the better off they are, the better off we are. It's a win-win. So I could have talked about thousands of things when it comes to seller role simplification. I'll talk about a couple more later on, but that's my use case, how I'm using AI to support me in that function. It could look very different for you and your company. You just need to figure out what is the roadblock or the challenge or the time suck that my reps are running into, and then start searching. Figure out, is there a tool that can help me? Right? Because that's what all this is. It's tools. I love the analogy earlier of the screwdriver versus the power tool. I think that's a fantastic example. It doesn't mean you need to use the screwdriver all day, every day, or the power drill all day, every day. You might need a screwdriver if it's a delicate situation, or if it's in between a hard to reach spot, or you don't want to strip the nail or whatever. But these tools are available for you when you need them. Lisa, go ahead. I think you're on mute.
Maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but I really appreciated, how you're using this in the sales process and the prospecting. When it comes to using AI, one of my initial concerns was about our data, our information going into this collective, large language model.
Yeah.
When you're using Phantom or Sybil, is it containing all of your notes only available and building on for you and your business, or is it going out into anything larger and broader?
Good question. Based on the information that I know, it is not using your data to train the model. So your information is not
Okay.
going out into the ecosystem of AI. It's not, it's being used securely. And for Sybil, I know that they actually use ChatGPT's enterprise version to push all their data through. And the ChatGPT enterprise version allows for the security of that data. So both of those companies have specific web pages answering exactly that question, because it is a very important and big question. But again, the medical device company I was working with was Medtronic, and they had zero issue sharing their whole sales process with me and recording the whole thing. And I think if companies like that are comfortable with it, I won't run into that issue too many times. But great question, and I can get you more information on that if you need it.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. So that's use case number one. Use case number two I'm going to dive into is generative value messaging. And I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we do in Sandler here a little bit too, because it ties in very well. So today we have what people call personalized messaging, but it's not really personalized. It's just templated. It's going to say, hey, Ryan, I see you've been X position at X company for X years. They didn't do any research. They just had a program pull that information in and made it sound personalized. But we all know that it's very generic. It's not tailored to us, how we speak, how we think, what's important to us. So we know that the messaging of this is not very effective. So what does this mean? How do we change that? Well, we want to get from personalized to personal. And personal is tailored. Personal is tailored to Ryan. It's tailored around how he speaks, what's important to him, what he might be interested in having a dialogue around. So the way that I do this, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. That's where I put out my newsletter. That's where I put out all my resources. Every time I have a meeting with someone, I go and I check their LinkedIn. I've always done that. Now with AI, I have a tool right here on the right. You see where that plugin is popping up? It's saying DI, be brief. Anyone getting any hints what DI could mean? Anyone familiar with DISC personality assessments? Yes, no, maybe, right? Similar to Myers-Briggs, but different, better. Just kidding, we're biased. We've used DISC and Sandler for 40 plus years to train our reps on how to communicate with people that are different than themselves, right? We have the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, guess what? Everyone's not you, right? So at Sandler, we have the platinum rule, treat others the way that they want to be treated, right? Not everyone's a high D and wants things in a bullet. Some people actually want details and they actually care about other people other than themselves. So I want to make sure that their team is taken care of, not just them. right? I don't want to talk in my own personality style. So Crystal uses LinkedIn to predict someone's personality style. And you can click this plugin and it will tell you how to and how not to speak to a prospect based on their job title, the posts they've made, and the information on their profile. Now, a few caveats. It's 70 to 80% accurate, right? It's not 100% right. If it was 100% accurate, I would be more concerned than excited, to be quite honest with you, but that's where it's at today. And again, not everyone writes their LinkedIn profile. I know, especially in the CEO world, some of you are blessed enough to have others that can do some of these things for you. So if that's the case, well, it's probably not going to predict your personality very well. So when we jump into a meeting with someone, DISC is a key factor. I tailor all of my meetings based on DISC. And the name of that was Crystal. Crystal knows. And I think it actually has, I'll pull up a logo in a second. So when I'm talking to someone in a meeting, I want to know what's important to them. What are their motivators? What are their drivers? What are their biggest concerns, right? So for a D, I know that they want the competitive advantage and they want results. Their biggest concern is a loss of control, right? So I'm going to sell to that. An S, they don't care if they lose control. They care if the team's not taken care of. If it's not fair and if the team doesn't get the results that they need with this new program, they're not happy. So I need to sell to those two people totally different. And I do. But if I'm going into a meeting with someone who I've never met before, how do I do that? It's going to take me 30, 45 minutes just to figure out where they're at on the disc chart. Instead, I can now use Crystal. And Crystal is going to have a plugin on their LinkedIn, again, that can help me predict their personality style. So I at least have a starting point. And it's not accurate 100% of the time, but it's a better place to start with than nothing. Because if I have nothing, I'm talking to them like a DI, because that's my personality, and that's what I'm going to stick to. And as you can see, it can help you understand how to communicate. It can help you understand how to write emails. And it can help you understand how to tailor your pitch and approach, what words or phrases to avoid. So maybe some situation-specific sales advice. So for me, if you're trying to schedule a meeting with me, you're going to want to quickly summarize the goal of the meeting, offer to do the prep work, and offer to bypass the schedule and just talk right now, because I'm impatient and I have a lack of maybe attention. So if you provide a lot of information, I stop listening after the first half because I just got distracted. If you schedule more time than what's necessary, I get bored, right? How do you want to schedule a meeting with me? What about making a great first impression, right? We know this is critical in sales. Building trust is key to any successful sales rep. So making good first impressions is important. How do we do that? What about if we were going to write an email to Jordan? How would we want to write that email? Well, you want to be direct to me. You don't want to be wishy-washy or too casual, right? Just be direct and let me know what's happening. So that's Crystal Knows. And Sandler also has another tool called Humantic AI, which you may have heard of. In the same sense, Humantic AI does almost the exact same thing. Makes a prediction on the profile, gives you some information to look at and consider. But Humantic AI also can enrich your CRM. So what I can do is I can connect Humantic to my HubSpot. And then every new lead that comes in, Humantic will look at their email and try and enrich their personality style with their communication style. So I can just have people entering my CRM and I know how I should talk to them based on Humantic's predictions. So two tools, very similar technology, maybe a little bit of a different use case. So you got to find which one's best for you. If I was doing prospecting all day long, which is more so what I do, Crystal Knows all the way. If I wanted to enrich my CRM, Humantic AI is the way to go. So just a way to think about it. Now that is generative value messaging. Any questions on that piece there? Anyone aware that that's even possible? That's usually where the people stop me when I'm doing it live, especially, and they go, "Wait, Jordan, is that legal?" I'm like, I'm pretty sure it is. I've been doing it for 2 years. So we've actually also sold some of our largest deals with Crystal, thanks to Crystal. We had a situation with a business owner who was a D, as many of them commonly are. And we've known DISC for 8-10 years, right? We train DISC. We should know how to use it. But even ourselves, knowing and training DISC, we use this tool, and it said they like options. Give them 3 options to pick from when negotiating so that they feel like they're in control. It's a great piece of advice. So we kept the standard option we were going to stick with. We gave them one option, which was a higher initial investment, lower ongoing, and then vice versa. Lower initial investment, higher ongoing investment. And he picked the one that was best for him and best for us and best for his company. And he felt like he was in control the whole time, right? So just the little things like that that help give us extra ideas. It might not be anything that we didn't already know, but it's just a nudge, right? Okay, prospecting. I'm not going to get too deep into prospecting because, to be quite honest with you, I see an issue in the world today when people are trying to implement AI. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to replace themselves, right? They're trying to have AI do their job for them. They're trying to have AI make their sales calls. They're trying to have AI do their prospecting. They just want to sit there and hit go and have everything else happen. And I think that that's, just to be honest, a little bit lazy. I think there are lazy people out there who are going to, automate their way out of a job or replace themselves with AI. But I think the successful people, when they use AI, they're going to understand how to use AI to multiply themselves, make themselves 2 people instead of 1. Right? So when I'm communicating with a client or a customer, whether it's LinkedIn messages or whether it's a phone call, I don't need AI to do that for me. I can do that. I'm spending all this time doing stuff like admin work and prep work and whatever. I don't need to do that. AI can do that for me. I'd rather have the conversation and do the pieces of the sales role that I think I should continue to do. And that personal connection and relationship is something that Crystal knows helps me strengthen, Humantic helps me strengthen, and I actually use AI tools to get all this crap out of the way so I can spend more time doing that. And that's how AI helps me build stronger relationships. So when it comes to prospecting, there is one question I do want to ask you though. Mark, go ahead. Oh, is that just a applause? Okay, good. Thank you. I think you're muted, by the way.
Sorry, I actually meant to raise my hand, but
Okay.
I will applaud as well.
I'll
'cause I
take
love
it.
this
I'll take it.
topic.
What's up?
I just had a similar question just on the kind of like the tailoring the messaging and communication, and curious if you've used Claritas, like Prism, which maps people to like marketing personas based on like the demographic of the person. So less about their personality style, but if they're in the North Woods and they're high wealth, using language that resonates with them versus an urban individual. And curious if there's any tools that almost similar to that, like mining of LinkedIn data, maybe mining like Facebook or something else to tell you a little bit more about the demographics of the person.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. You said that tool's called Claritas?
Yeah, Claritas Prism, and I know there's like some kind of plugin or something for ChatGPT.
Cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
check it out. So I do know I had a demo with a company last week. I think they're called like Collective Eye or something like that. I mean, these companies are popping up every day, right? And what they do is they actually have a model that you share data with. So let's pretend there's, a couple hundred or 1,000 companies that are sharing data with this model. What happens is when anyone who's in this program and sharing data with the model, when they email a buyer and they realize that buyer moved from Exxon to DuPont, that changes the contact record in every single person's CRM, updates automatically.
Yep.
So there's information like that, but there's also, it could be something like, hey, when deals are in the negotiation stage for DuPont, they stay there typically for 1 to 2 months. It's just a long process for them. And then based on all the other companies that negotiate with DuPont, your deal is on track and about average for how much time is being spent.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I just met with them last week. I'm trying to figure, some of the stuff, it's so new. You're like, I don't know if I want that or not, but it seems pretty freaking cool. But I don't know if I want to give them all my data, right? What does that mean? I don't know, right? And we're still learning some of this stuff. But there are some incredible things that could happen in the very near future with this technology and capability. So yeah, thanks for sharing. Okay. So today, I think Salesforce says the average sales rep uses 10 different channels to communicate with prospects. Today, we have more places than ever to find prospects, and that actually makes our job harder, not easier as a salesperson, right? Is it on search or SEO? Is it a live chat on the website? Is it a social network?
Sorry.
Or is it the old school methodology, like a phone call or a meeting or a text, right? Where are your prospects or your ideal
I do.
clients? Did you have a question? Okay. So we need to figure out where they are first in order to understand, can we use tech or tools to streamline this process? My last job, I was walking into manufacturing plants, trying to sneak in past the gatekeepers, right? And get to the guy who's sitting in his chair at the maintenance desk. Very hard to use tech to do that. Unless I'm training a robot to go and do it. I'm not going to replace what I'm doing. But there are ways that it could use AI and tech to support that function, right? Like helping me understand what his personality style might be when I get there or something like that. And thanks for joining, Paul. I think we'll have a recording, so you should be all good. So where do your prospects live in? My prospects, a lot of them live on LinkedIn, like I've already mentioned. So it makes it a little bit easier for me. I can use an automation tool. This one's called Dripify. There's tons of these tools out there. And Dripify is simply an automation tool that I can use to send out LinkedIn connections, create messaging, so on and so forth. So I'll let AI and automation, really this is no AI, this is all automation. I tell you to do this, this happens, right? AI is making decisions, automation is you're telling it what to do and it's doing it over and over and over again. So I feed these sequences a list on LinkedIn. It knows what messages to send. Every day while I'm doing stuff like this, I can have 20 to 30 connections sent out, 20 to 30 messages sent out, and grow my LinkedIn network on autopilot while I'm here doing the things I love to do. Not the whole conversation. It's just going to send the first message or two. It's going to start the dialogue, right? And I will start the dialogue in the same way most of the time. But when it responds, it stops. And then I pick up as the human. I don't want it having a full conversation with them. I want to pick up after it starts and does the hard part or the grunt work, right? Sending out thousands of connections and thousands of messages just to see who responds. I don't want to do that. But when they respond, I'll have a conversation, right? And this tool in 1 month was able to generate 386 new connections and 133 new conversations. Umair, great point. These tools, LinkedIn does not like them. LinkedIn does not like these tools. There's more today than there have ever been, but there's even things on this tool where it helps you warm it up and helps you kind of avoid LinkedIn detecting that there's an automation tool. So if you're trying to, avoid any of that, this might be a tool you want to avoid. But to be honest with you, a lot of these AI tools, they're kind of bending the status quo, right? A lot of the things that AI can do, it wasn't possible without bending the status quo. So I think ChatGPT, when they got sued for the copyright violation for all the content that they're essentially plagiarizing to recreate their new content, you know what they said? They said there's no way to create AI without creating plagiarism or without using other people's information. So their defense was basically nothing we can do. If you want this tech, this is how it has to happen. Good thing, bad thing? Not sure, up to you, right? But I'll give you the resource and let you make the decision. How's that sound? So again, just another tool in how I start to use it for prospecting. And then last, but definitely not least, is solution design and deal closing.
Jordan, what was the
Yeah.
name of the previous tool?
It was called Dripify, Dripify.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's Dripify. There's a tool called Connected with a K, Kennected. There's probably 5 or 6 of these out there that are pretty solid tools that I just kind of test them out for a couple months, jump over to another one, see how it works. But yeah, very useful. And then solution design and deal closing. So similar to prospecting, you got to know where your prospects live, but you also need to know where your sales data lives, because if you don't have any sales data for AI to analyze, it's not going to be able to give you an analysis, right? If you have it living in this outbox of your sales rep and this spreadsheet over there that's kind of hidden, and then that manila folder filed away over in that filing cabinet, good luck getting a good view of what's happening, right? So if we can centralize that data and have somewhere for it to live, then we can start to use it. So at Sandler, we partnered with HubSpot about a year or two ago. HubSpot is an AI-powered sales, marketing, and operations platform that connects all of these tools under one umbrella, right? So at Sandler, for 10, 20 years, we've had clients saying, what CRM is best? And all 200 franchises said something different. That's not very helpful for our clients. So we got on board with HubSpot because of our methodology aligning so closely. And now we can become an expert in one system and help companies systematize their process. On top of that, we have another partner called Octus IQ, and they have a tool called Deal IQ. And it's a mouthful what it does, but it's an AI-powered sales pipeline management software for deal management and forecasting. So whatever that means, I'll show you in a second. But basically, AI to help you understand, where's my deal at? What's the confidence value or score of my deal? And based on what? So this is Octus, or this is a screenshot of Octus. You can see the HubSpot logo here again as it pulls our deals from HubSpot and any important information. And then on the left side, what Octus IQ has done over the last 20 years is they've taken a lot of sales intelligence data. And they actually were founded based on the back end of a sale to IBM. They sold their last company to IBM for $1.4 billion. And IBM apparently is the most litigated company in the world for whatever reason. And they didn't want the sales intelligence data because they were worried they were going to get sued for it. So they said, hey, we'll buy most of this company, but do you want to buy back the sales intelligence data for pennies on the dollar? And they said, yeah, sure. And being the people they were, I think they're in their 30s. They didn't want to retire. They took all the sales intelligence data and they said, well, let's build something else with it. And they built this tool. And this tool is what they use to run that company in the transition and hit 23 out of 24 consecutive forecasting quarters in the mid 2000s for a tech company, which is not something that was happening very often in that time frame. And what they were doing was basically identifying what are the reasons that people win and lose deals. And they identified it's these 7 categories or imperatives. It's understanding 5 questions on who is the buyer, who are the influencers, who are we competing against and why? Do we know why we will win? Do we know why we will lose? Do we know when the decision will be made? And do we understand what we've taught them? And they have incredible data that shows if you go from having 0 of these 5 questions in one category filled out versus having all 5 answered yes, your close rates go from something like 20% to 84% in some cases. I mean, it's incredible how much your deal rates increase or probabilities increase once you get all this insight. And why? Well, you have a intimate knowledge of the deal and what's happening at that point, better than any of your competition will. And then on top of the deal imperatives, we've also mapped out the Sandler process on the right-hand side. What are the seller and buyer reciprocations that happen in each stage from identifying a deal, qualifying a deal, positioning a deal, agreeing on a deal, and approving a deal? And all of these yes or no questions, right? These are all checkbox to make it very easy for the rep to say, yes, I have that. No, I don't. Right? There's not much opinion that can go into that. That all impacts that deal confidence score up at the top. And as they check boxes off and move down the deal, that deal confidence score increases. Originally, it's going to be based on all the sales intelligence data that they have. After you put 20 or 30 deals through the system, it actually learns based on your data. And then on top of that, we add Sandler tools and methodology right into it. So again, it's connected, it's talking the same language. The reps aren't thinking, I have to go this way and then that way, and it's all aligned in one direction. Again, to make the life of the sales rep easier, not harder. So by focusing on these use cases, Gartner estimates that sales leaders can help their sales team save up to 25% of their time. Right? Greg mentioned something like that earlier. Well, what happens when they only spend 28% of their time selling? Are we effectively doubling their sales time, making them twice as effective? Well, this is what Gartner predicts that pie looks like today. And this is what Gartner predicts that pie could look like in the future. Notice where the sales rep is spending all of their time: negotiation and closing, conducting sales calls, and then extra bandwidth. It's all in communication. What if we took that extra bandwidth, which is really a day or two, and what if we spent a half a day training your sales team, training them in sales methodology, sales techniques, sales practices, best practices for your company, your products, whatever it is? What if we trained your reps instead of wasting that time on busy work and administrative work? How much more effective could they be? Right? So this is where we're trying to go and where we're trying to get to. It's easier said than done. But the goal for today is to help you understand some of the ways that could be possible and figure out, where do we start? And this is going to mean something important for the seller of the future, because their competencies and what's important for them to be good at is going to change. It's going to become more granular. They don't have to be good at as many things. They need to be good at communication and understanding, because it's going to be a big part of their role. They need to be good at creativity, understanding how AI and technology can fit into assisting them in their role. And they're going to need technological aptitude or technical aptitude to understand, how do they work with technology as a teammate? How do they work together with it rather than in spite of it? So these are the three things that you're going to really want to focus on with your reps moving forward: is how are their skill sets when it comes to personal connections and creativity around using tech? Because in the future, the role of the salesperson is going to be about doing fewer things, but doing them better. Right? So sales leaders, we have to combine the transformative power of AI with uniquely human capabilities of the salespeople in order to drive high margin deals. Right? It's not salespeople or AI. It's, how do we use these as a teammate? So how do we do that? And this is a section that I added just for you all to help you consider what might happen. And then we'll get to some chat GPT best practices and have some time for some questions. So what is this? This is what I want you to ask yourself. What does my sales process look like? Well, my sales process looks like this. We get a new lead, we enter discovery, they become qualified, we present the solution gets agreed, or we might negotiate in between these two stages, and then we send a proposal. And then they either end up in closed won or closed lost. And of course, there's a lot of pieces of information or steps that happen in between each one of those stages. But what I want to happen or do is, I want to map out every single one of those steps and understand how much human intervention is required, how much time is spent, how frustrating are these for me. And I want to start pulling one at a time, pulling these tasks out and having AI do them for me, or at least having AI make them 50% less effort to do them, right? So the question I have for you is, how manual, on a scale from 1 to 10, is your sales process? And in true Sandler fashion, we're going to say you can't pick 7. Right? No safe numbers. It's either 8, it's pretty manual, 9 or 10, or 7, can't do 6, not very manual. How manual is your sales process? Well, in each stage, there's ways that we can start to use AI. And you don't need to use AI and automation in every single stage. But when it comes to a new lead, we can use AI to tailor the outreach messaging or to predict the communication style. We can use automation to actually start that first engagement and create the conversation. In discovery, you can use AI to better understand the buyer, draft some discovery questions, summarize meeting follow-ups and notes. And we can use automation to capture data and information from the meeting so that we don't have to. Same thing in qualified, right? We can figure out what are their pains, what are their interests with AI, and automation can continue logging all of these details so that we don't have to. When we're presenting a solution, AI can be used to summarize the pains and help us develop that solution. Automation can be used to draft proposals and presentations. When the solution's agreed, AI can be used to summarize pains and the interests again. And the automation can be used to draft those same things, right? And then last, when the proposal's being sent, AI can personalize these things and actually, like we saw with Deal IQ, predict the chances of this deal closing, right? We want to know especially if we're spending a day putting a proposal together. Is it worth our time? Or do we need to go back and ask more questions first? And then automation tools can be used to create and send the proposal. So I'm going to take you through this process, and this is more automation focused, but I want you to help understand what this could look like. So this is the company my little brother works for, and we're working on a HubSpot for them right now. They get leads in 3 ways. A new website lead, they fill out a form on the website. It's 90% of their leads. Or they get an email, or they get a phone call. If they go on the website and the lead fills out the form, what's going to happen is an automated deal will be created based on the job type. They have a maintenance pipeline and a new construction pipeline. And then all the information they put on the form will be added to the deal. Or if they get a phone call or an email, it's going to be a manual creation. And they're going to enter it into a maintenance lead, right? So they add this deal into a maintenance lead, and these properties are going to be the information they collect. Who's a point of contact? What's their name and number? What's the lead source? Was it a website form? Was it call-in? Was this a referral? Was this a networking event? How can we help from the form? Any photos, any additional information? So we know a new lead has been submitted. And now we know that the rep needs to make a phone call to all these new leads to schedule an onsite. That rep picks up the phone, makes the call, and the onsite's scheduled. And then when that onsite is scheduled and he moves the deal over, he's going to have to put in, hey, is this a solo inspection? What's the onsite date and time? What's the actual scope of work based on the conversation that I had, not the scope of work that they told me is real, right? And he can confirm some information there. So now he sees all of the onsites he has scheduled in one stage. And then he goes out and he performs the onsite. When he does that, he moves it into the next stage. And now it's project scoped, where he can confirm the scope of work based on what he saw on site. He can add notes. He can add a link to the Google Drive folder where all the pictures of the site are going to be taken. And now he knows all the projects that he has scoped and that he needs to quote are in one stage. From there, we're working on building a custom estimating tool that's going to connect to a quoting platform called PandaDoc, which is just a document management tool. And that's actually going to connect back to HubSpot. So he's going to go put all this information into an Excel sheet, hit generate. That's going to automatically generate a quote. And on the next page, that quote will be waiting for approval automatically through PandaDoc. So in this other platform, they'll work through the approval process. Management will look at it. They'll make revisions. They'll send that deal out. Once they get it approved and send it out, it moves into proposal sent. Automatically, they don't move the deal. Once the proposal gets sent from the other platform, it's integrated back and it tells HubSpot, hey, move this deal over so that the rep doesn't have to do it. And then once the proposal is signed by the customer, that deal again automatically gets moved based on the automations and integrations to your proposal signed. So what we've done effectively is boiled down the sales rep's job to 5 steps. 4 steps, actually. He makes a phone call to schedule the onsite. He performs the onsite and updates the notes. He creates the quote and the proposal in PandaDoc. And then he sends the proposal. His job is done. Right, so now when he hires a new rep, you know how easy it's going to be to train them? You know how simple it's going to be to figure out what do I really need to do in my role? And that's where I want you to start thinking of how you could start to use some of this technology and tools in your business. And it doesn't have to look like this. And this is actually isn't even that much AI. It's more automation and just technology and systems and processes than anything. But this is how we can start to get this data. And then you know what I can do? I can look back at 2023 and say, hey, all of the closed deals that I won, what was their lead source? Oh, I got 10 from referrals. I got 10 from talks, and I got 2 from networking. Well, I'm canceling my BNI membership. Thank God, I don't like going there anyway. Right. And I'm going to focus all my time on referrals and all my time on talks. And you can start to make strategic decisions based on the information, the reporting that you get back from these platforms. So I think I have time. I'll walk through this video. So this is me filling out the form on the website, or an example of it. Right. So I'm putting my name in. I spelled my name wrong, but you didn't see that. And I'm going to upload or submit my form. All right, so I can customize what I want it to say. I can have it send an email. It's going to take a second. I have to refresh the pipeline. But once that pipeline is refreshed and it enters into the pipeline, which you'll see here, there's my deal sitting in maintenance lead. All right, so now we have all of our deals. So the rep knows, hey, all of these leads, I need to go call them. And what he can do is he can open their card. You can see who's the contact associated to it. He can see any information about the deal on the left-hand side there. And his phone's connected, so he can actually make that call from right there. But when he goes back and he makes the call and he schedules the onsite, he's going to move that deal across to onsite scheduled. And when he does that, he's also going to have to enter the information such as, is it a solo inspection? What's the date? And what's the time? And this is going to happen for every single stage and all the information that's required. And then by the end of it, once he saves this information, all this data is going to be kept on the left-hand side of the deal card. So when he goes to generate a quote in a few days or a few weeks, he has all the details he needs. He doesn't have to read through his email and the notes on his phone and the scratches on the piece of paper that he brought out there. It's all in one place. And you'll see it here on the left-hand side. Right, so all the information, where the lead source is, and then all the additional information on the maintenance lead is right down below it, or the on-site scheduled. So just to give you an idea of what it looks like in concept, and then what it looks like in real life and how it gets built out, it doesn't remove the need for a sales rep, but they went from stage 0 or stage 1 to stage 3 in a matter of a couple of weeks because of this. Right, so again, to circle back, my question is, what stage are you in? And what needs to happen for you to get to the next stage? What would that look like? Okay. So that's the meat of the presentation right there. And I'm going to wrap up by giving everyone some just takeaways to walk through with ChatGPT. But I want to stop and make sure I answer all the questions first. And I have white papers and stuff that I could give you instead of going through this section. So if we want to take 30 minutes and ask questions right now, we can. And I can give you a white paper to read if this is really something that's crucial to you, or I can dive into it if we don't have, questions for 30 minutes. So any questions based on that last section? Mark, go ahead.
Sorry, thanks.
Yeah.
One question I have is, like one of the things we're exploring is creating like a custom GPT for proposal content generation and really pointing it at things like our website, past proposals, marketing content we have to maybe then summarize information for things like RFP responses or proposal content. Have you seen people do that, and what kind of success have you seen?
No, actually, I haven't really heard of anyone doing that. It's an interesting idea. So the thing with AI is they call it a jagged frontier. And it's a jagged frontier because we don't exactly know what it's going to be good at and what it's not going to be good at. And the only way to find out is by trying it, right? So it's really good at acting like someone else. It's awful at math. We thought it was going to be great at math. So this jagged frontier is being uncovered as we figure out what it's good at and what it's not good at. And some things you'll get some out of ChatGPT and you're like, what is this flaming pile of, you know what? You're like, that's not anything like I wanted. And then other times you'll put something, you're like, how is this free? Right. So I think it's a great idea. I would try it, right? And see what you get. It really is going to depend on what type of proposal content are you looking for and what needs to be done to generate that. I messed around with some custom GPTs and have gotten some to do what I wanted to do and others that didn't really do what I wanted to do, right? So no, I haven't heard of anything like that, but I think it could work. Gotta try it.
All right.
Cool. Let me know how that goes. I'd love to hear that.
We'll do.
Any other questions on anything we just covered there? Are our heads spinning? Or are we just afraid to ask questions because we're not even sure where to go with this?
Is there any AI to help us understand AI?
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, I use ChatGPT to teach me AI. So yes,
Oh,
there
right.
is.
I thought it
Lisa,
was a
thanks for
stupid
joining.
question.
Yeah, so there is, I mean, ChatGPT, and that's a good point to dive into this next section. ChatGPT has taught me so many things. So I was homeschooled in 7th and 8th grade. And the way I was homeschooled is my mom, and this wasn't because she didn't want to teach me, or this is the way I learned. She gave me a book. She said, here's what the content is. Here's when the test is. Read it. Here's your test. If you do well, great. If you need more help, let me know. But that was great for me. So what did I do? My mom dropped me off at the golf course at 8 a.m. in the morning. I'd go play golf until 4. I'd do my homework from 4 to 5 p.m., 4 to 7 p.m., because I could do it much quicker. And I learned a ton those 2 years, way more than I would have learned in public school. So it helped me self-learn. ChatGPT can do the exact same thing. Dan, go ahead.
I'm just curious, you showed a lot of integrations of AI tools with your CRM system.
Mm-hmm.
How much work was that?
Good question. HubSpot focuses on its ability to integrate. So for HubSpot, it wasn't that difficult. Most of them already had native integrations. And if you look at a lot of the tech tools out there, they integrate with 2 CRMs, Salesforce and HubSpot. And then it's like Pipedrive and Zoho, and then they have like an API that you have to create a backend connection. So for me, it wasn't that difficult just because HubSpot does make that a pretty easy process. The thing is, you can almost integrate anything today. The question is, how much is it going to cost, right? If it's a custom built integration, it's not going to be cheap. I mean, 10, 15, 20 grand to start, right? These companies aren't lifting a finger for less than 5 grand right now because they have so much work that's 20 to 40 grand for a custom integration. So if it's a custom integration, it's a little bit more difficult. But thankfully today with AI and everything, a lot of these are very low code or no code type of integrations to where you just are connecting accounts. So for me, it was very easy to connect my HubSpot to Sybil and Fathom and all these things, Humantic, because they're designed around it. And to be quite honest, I pick AI tools that are designed to integrate with my CRM because I don't want 50,000 AI tools that I have to go and remember my login and transfer the data. It's not useful for me.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Okay, we got 20 minutes, so feel free to stop me if you have questions, but let's get into some ChatGPT best practices. Unless, Peter, you have a question?
I was just going to ask if there's any thought of sort of a Sandler-based model, like around the submarine, to combine a bunch of these things into one application.
Peter, great question. I'm trying to figure out if I'm on the record or not. That does not exist today, but there is definitely the application to create a custom model or custom AI model that is fed all the training data for a specific methodology. So would a Sandler GPT be possible and extremely useful? Yes. Have I been telling people this for 7 or 8 months? Am I able to go and create it with all the Sandler IP? So I think we'll get there very soon. I've been talking to some of the folks at Sandler at a higher level, and they're out at a bunch of AI conferences and learning the different models and making sure that the AI tools that they build for Sandler can transcend, a single model. Because what if in 2 years ChatGPT is not around anymore? Google takes the lead or whatever, right? Things are going to flex very quickly in this new world. We don't want to put all of our coins into one basket, if that makes sense, and build it on ChatGPT. So yeah, trust me, I'm getting antsy myself, but it's coming hopefully. But don't take my word on it. Eli, yeah.
Hey, Jordan, this is
Hey.
outstanding. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Happy to be part of it. And I have a question regarding, I put it in the chat. I think a lot of stuff got in there and I'm not sure it got addressed, but the question I have is that, and this may not be something anyone on here knows, but what I'm seeing from a technology and an infrastructure standpoint is that because of AI and the cost and shortage of data center space, this concept of edge computing is becoming more and more of a thing where you put mini data centers out throughout the world, the properties, internet, whatever. And What are your thoughts? Do you have any insight on that as to how overwhelmed the current data center supporting cloud, crypto, and now AI is and where that's going?
Not exactly. I don't keep up too much with that side of the AI world, just to be completely honest. But what I have seen is there's been a lot of technological advances, and specifically Apple has come out and said, we think we did it. We think we figured out how to put an AI model like this on the iPhone, right? Because that's been their biggest challenge is putting this on the iPhone and making a local AI model on a device like that. It's almost impossible because of how much data is required. But there's advances that are happening that are making this more and more possible each day. So no, it's definitely a genuine concern, I believe, by a lot of people trying to figure out what is this going to do to the infrastructure that supports it. Couldn't tell you. Maybe we'll use AI to fix that problem. But
I'm gonna have to try. I'll try out
sure.
Chat GPT and ask that.
Yeah, there you go. Ryan, go ahead.
Thanks. So you brought up a really interesting point, which I'm sort of ashamed I didn't think of earlier, about when you got asked, is Sandler going to build sort of a set of tools around this, and you were like, hey, well, we don't know what's going to happen with the tools, and it made me really realize that we're much more comfortable building tools on these automation platforms because they follow a set of rules, right? If you use if this then that, right, that's pretty common stuff. The ones and zeros make sense.
Yep.
So one of the concerns that some of the people we talk to have is that, hey, if they go buy a solution, certainly building a solution is super risky, but it's not like, hey, I'm going and buying Azure or AWS and it's got the set of components that I expect will be there. The Chat GPT stuff changes from iteration to iteration, and like, unless it truly is that human neural stuff you're talking about, where there can be some variability, like you said, it's bad at math. So therefore, how unpredictable is the solution you build on top of it that you come to rely on, right? We as human beings, I think, need to rely on things that we feel are predictable and they're going to work, as opposed to, hey, it could return you a different answer next week. Why should we feel comfortable building sort of, let's say, solutions or processes on top of variability?
Yeah, to be quite honest, that's why I don't let AI prospect for me. That's why I use an automation tool to prospect, because I know what it's going to say every single time, and it's not going to surprise me or the person getting the message. It's not going to make me say something I would never say, which I don't think that's happening that much, but it is. It still is, right? We're seeing the news stories and stuff of this person saying that. And it's like, oh, actually, it was AI. And there was some news article that was put out by the New York Times, and it was an obituary, and it was written by AI. And in the obituary, the AI called the person who passed away lazy and useless and something like that. And the New York Times had to roll back and be like, whoa, we didn't read what we printed, right? So yeah, there's some variability in it, and there's some, this is new tech, right? We got to be careful where we just deploy it. It's exciting and it could be game changing, but it doesn't mean you just trust it 100%. So yeah, great point, Ryan.
It could become the Terminator. That's basically what you're saying.
I decline to comment on that. Decline to comment. Okay. We've all used probably some form of a Chat GPT or Bing Copilot or Google Bard or something like this, or at least heard about it or seen someone use it. And if you haven't, you saw me use it earlier. But there's a lot of these tools out here, and they all operate in a very similar way. So I want to lay out some best practices and help you understand how you could capitalize on the tool. So one is being specific, right? So Rick, let's pretend you have an intern and you go to that intern and you say, hey, write me an email. That email is going to suck, right? Same thing if you tell ChatGPT, hey, write me an email. But if you say, I want you to write me an email about this main cause to this ideal client profile, in the first sentence, I want you to invoke curiosity. In the second sentence, I want you to tell me how they're probably trying to solve the problem and it's not working. And then in the third sentence, tell them how we've successfully solved it. And the fourth sentence should ask for interest. That's going to be good. That's going to be a good email, right? They have guidelines and parameters, and you're very specific on what to do. So give it some context and assign a role. If it understands who it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to be doing, it can help accomplish those goals much better, right? So I say, hey, act as a VP of sales for a manufacturing company and help me understand what are the top 5 challenges that you encounter or expect to encounter in 2024. And then I can have a conversation with that VP of sales and brainstorm my dialogue before a discovery meeting. I might ask it to act as a specific role to help assign that role to. And then again, remember, it's a chat bot, right? Chat conversation. Have a conversation with it. If the output is too long, say, hey, this is way too long. If it's too formal, say, hey, this is way too formal. It's supposed to go back and forth until you get the output that you need, not just one and done like Google. And then breaking it down, right? So I write newsletters with AI and ChatGPT. I don't say, hey, write me an AI newsletter on this. I say, hey, I want to write a newsletter. Can you help me think of how I would create the outline? And I want to talk about this, but first I want to think about my ideal client profile and what are the main challenges they have. And can we create an outline based around that? That's gonna be a much better outline. And then I can go back and say, fill in each section one at a time, because I can edit each section one at a time instead of having it write the whole thing. And then I have to go back and try and say, change paragraph 2, line 3. You know, it's much harder to work with a larger set of data. And then last, but certainly not least, supplement artificial intelligence with human intelligence. Don't forget that you have a brain. Just because you're behind a chat GPT doesn't mean you got to copy and paste everything that it has and say, this is what it told me. You know, you're much smarter than it is, especially right now. And hopefully that remains the case for a very long time. But you're smarter. You understand the context of the situation. You have more creativity. All AI can do is take all the things that have already been done and do that again and do it a little bit differently. That's what generative AI is doing. It's saying all these things have been done before. Let's do it and just change it a little bit. It's not creative. It's not unique. You can have that creativity and uniqueness. So you have to work together with it. And then, you know, when you put a better input in, you're going to get a better output, right? So if you want to understand the pains of your buyer, you're going to ask it to act as an ideal client profile for blank industry that does this, right? So act as a VP of sales for an industrial manufacturing company that sells through channels, right? And it's going to understand the different pains of our buyers and different things like that. We can have it do some research. Tell me about this industry. Tell me about that industry. Help me understand AI, right? This is how I learned AI, right? And I have a couple more of these, and then I just want to prepare you at the end. We're going to put up a poll question, and I'm going to invite Greg in to kind of wrap this up. But I have a couple more of these, and then we're going to wrap up. So if you have questions, feel free to kind of raise your hand, and I'll get to you before we get to that point. Empathizing with your buyer, helping you understand what are the top 5 pain points for an ideal client profile in this industry, right? And then I can go a lot of places from there. What are the things that they're most focused on? Would sales training be something they're willing to invest in? How should I formulate sales training compared to the things that they're struggling with, right? I can have this conversation, and it's a way to just talk out loud. I might not learn anything new in that dialogue, but it might give me an opinion or a question or something that I just wasn't thinking of. And I might not even use that exactly, but I'll take it and tweak it and make it mine, right? A lot faster than I do with a blank canvas, right? Helping you understand the monetization or the monetary impacts of something, right? How much would this cost them in dollars? Put it in a table. Dan, you have a question?
I'm just curious if I wanted this to use my data. In other words, I took all my customer data, all my deal data. How hard is it to get that data into the model so that the answers are based on, my circumstances?
It's a lot easier than it should be, right? So that's coming back to the custom GPT conversation.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of information online on custom GPTs if you really want to dive into it, like YouTube and stuff like that, on how to create a custom GPT, that I'd recommend looking at if you're interested in doing that, where you can just basically train a model, upload a bunch of different documents as a knowledge base, and have it read a few different websites and then base the responses on that, right? So I have a custom GPT called the AI Sales Guy, and that AI Sales Guy custom GPT will recommend the tools that I like to use. It'll talk about sales and AI the way I like to talk about it. And then after 2 or 3 responses, it's going to give them a link to my LinkedIn profile that they can click and jump right to my page, right? So I try and get rid of some of the AI interface there. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. And if you had already sort of gone over that, I apologize.
No problem. No problem. So in the same sense, right? Preparing for a meeting, I'm selling blank, and I have a sales discovery meeting with this type of client at this company with this many people, right? Context, context, context. What are the top 10 questions I should ask? What are the top 10 questions they're going to ask me that I should be prepared to answer? right? Different things there. Help me think of 5 creative subject lines for this email. Act as a helpful and friendly customer service representative. Please respond to this email, and you paste it in there. Right? There's so many places we can go with this. And then, this is the prompt stacking that I talked about, where I put in my different prompts earlier, and you saw the different departments I should call on in the emails. This is a prompt I use over and over and over again. I sell blank to blank. We provide the outcomes of blank, 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 blank. And then I ask any single question right below. What are 3 different buyer personas for my target profile or my company? What are the top 5 pains I can solve? What department should I reach out to? What industry should I reach out to? What else can I do with knowing this information? What question should I ask next, right? And then I ask it to put it in a table, summarize these things, right? I'm not going to get too in depth here, but just to, again, wrap your head around it. And then getting, again, very specific on first sentence, second sentence, third sentence, so on and so forth. And then it provides a pretty good output. I know I'm rushing through these final slides here, but you're going to get the chance to get a copy of some of this stuff down the road as well. And then at Sandler, we have the 30-second commercial. You can use AI to help you create a 30-second commercial. Help me understand the challenges, condense those challenges and concerns in the top 3, and then write a paragraph based on this format, right? So we can go a lot of places. Last thing I'll leave you with are just a few key takeaways. So, think of this as a teammate situation, not a me or them type of situation. You have to find the AI strategy that's right for you, and that's going to depend on your company, your use cases, everything there. And then it's not about what you say, but it's really about how you say it with ChatGPT and some of these other things. So with that, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully that was enough. Here's a poll that's popping up on ways that we might be able to help you. If you want more, maybe this was enough. You just want to learn AI. That's great. If we can help you really understand what this could mean for you or your company, we'd be happy to do so. So that's all I got. Greg, pass it back over to you.
It's interesting. I've always believed, and I share this a lot at the conclusion of many workshops that we facilitate, that our ability as sales professionals to gather information is the key. So our value as sales professionals doesn't increase so much with the amount of information we dispense as with the amount of information we gather. And one of the things about these tools that you've been talking about today is that it improves our effectiveness in gathering information, as well as our efficiency in gathering that information. And it helps us to gather the right kind of information to be able to be more effective at qualifying and closing deals. So if you feel like your team has some good growth potential, whether it be in a sales methodology, techniques to fuel the process, or in use of AI, that's why we put these polling questions up here. So if your interest is more so in the AI, you're gonna we'll set up a call with Jordan. If your interest is more in a sales process and methodology, you and I will probably be talking, or one of my salespeople. If your interest is in both, then you'll be talking to 2 different people.
Can I be transparent for a second?
Fantastic job. I love the conversational tone of your delivery. Let's just give you a round of applause, man. That was fantastic. So thank you very, very much.
Amen.
We're looking forward to working with you all in the future, hopefully. And I suppose, Scott, this is your group, so you should probably close it out, wrap it up.
You bet. And thanks so much, Greg. And thank you,
I
Jordan.
think you're
That
on
was-
mute.
Yeah, of course.
We
Oh,
can't
I'm on
hear
mute.
you. Maybe you got your mic shut
Oh,
off.
I think I got him. Can you hear Scott?
Am I okay now?
Yeah,
We
I
got
can
you.
hear
Okay. It's got a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, but it was a really good introduction. And when we talked a few weeks ago, you showed me a couple of those applications. They really did blow me away. And now I know a little bit more about how they integrate with the whole process. And I will be looking into doing what I can here and trying to get my old brain around some of these new tricks.
Yeah. You don't have to automate the whole process.
Yeah, right. Well, just getting rid of the stuff that I don't like. I mean, that's 90% of it right there, right? And
yeah,
there is a lot of it that I don't like. And so if we can get that off the table, then so much the better. And I think, we can expand this. You talked about and you generally talk about how this is applicable to a sales process. But as I said earlier, we're all salespeople. We all have something to sell. And if it's a matter of looking for a VC to fund our company, or looking for a new job, or any kind of we're all selling. So this stuff is useful. I mean, even in our meetings, some of the recording stuff is interesting, and I'd kind of like to see an output from this kind of a
Check
session.
1 2 1 2.
Yep, you're
That's
there, Greg. So thank you all for participating. Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you especially Jordan. Really good presentation. Well done.
Thank you.
And I know this video is going to be watched many times over.
I know it's overwhelming. Good luck. I get overwhelmed too, and it's my job. So if you're not overwhelmed, that just means you're not paying attention. So that's okay, but just one thing at a time. But thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Other people have asked me to do this presentation in 20 minutes, and 2 hours is preferred. So I appreciate
Super.
it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you all.
Stay well.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Too.
Take care.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Yeah, really well done, Jordan. Thank you
Thanks,
for that. And I'll follow up. I'll get the poll results to both of you, I guess. And I use a service called Roll Digital, and they do essentially what Dripify does, and they charge me for it. And so maybe there's a direct opportunity for me there. I used a thing called Octopus.
Yeah. That's a good one too.
But I wasn't very diligent about it. So maybe just paying them makes me diligent at following up.
Sometimes that investment makes you move. Yeah, if there's any questions from this or any follow-up, just let me know. I'd be happy to help answer. And no, thanks for inviting me. I love doing this kind of stuff, if you can't tell. So I enjoy
Yeah,
it.
well, you're good at it.
Thank you. Have a good one,
Thanks.
Scott. See ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.